Hello. Glad to have you again on this program, Just Nation, a program designed to discuss the issues of faith, justice, and race in the city of Philadelphia and beyond. And we're so excited to be here today to talk about this most important issue. Again, I'm here with my co-host, Neil Holston, who is going to lead us into this great conversation we're having today and help introduce our guests. So excited and glad to be here.
Yes, glad to be here as well for this important discussion in this very important and critical moment that we are living in. We wanted to start the show off a little bit different tonight. Normally we just go into introducing our guests, but I wanted to start off to make sure that people understood, our watchers are understanding the importance of this moment, the challenges of this moment, and what we are facing and how we need to fight back. And so specifically tonight, we are going to be talking about the political repression that we are seeing as it relates to Palestine solidarity activism and the capitulation or the bending of institutions, universities, law firms to get rid of DEI or race and racial justice issues in their institutions. And so I want to begin with a quote. This quote is from George Jackson, who was a political prisoner and Black freedom fighter who was incarcerated in California in 1971. He was killed by prison guards in August 1971, but before his murder, he wrote extensively, and many of his writings were contained in the book Blood in My Eye. And I want to open the show with this quote because I think it is so salient for this moment. And the quote is, "Settle your quarrels, come together, understand the reality of your situation, understand that fascism is already here, that people are dying who could be saved, that generations will die or live poor, butchered half lives if you fail to act. Do what must be done, discover your humanity and your love and revolution." So the topic of this show today is the political repression and the attacks on free speech that we're seeing in this current moment. And we're taping the show in the beginning of April, and you are watching it in May or later. And as of this taping, I want to just talk about some of what has occurred in this most recent history. Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist and graduate student at Columbia, and lawful permanent resident and green card holder, never accused of any crime, was taken from his home by plainclothes Department of Homeland Security officials and transferred to an ICE detention facility in Louisiana without notice to his lawyer or without notice to his wife, who is 8 months pregnant. He is still detained in an ICE detention facility. Rajani Srinivasan, a Columbia graduate student, fled to Canada after agents came to her Columbia dorm room without a warrant and had her student visa revoked. She states that she engaged in limited social media actions and of critical content in Gaza. Content critical of Israel's actions in Gaza. She was not a part of any organized campus group, but despite that, the Department of Homeland Security labeled her a, quote, terrorist sympathizer and stated those who, quote, advocate terrorism and violence must be deported. Ramazia Ozturk was accosted and snatched off the street in Boston by masked ICE agents as she walked to break her Ramadan fast for the day with her friends. Badan Khan Suri was a professor at Georgetown, was detained and imprisoned by ICE, not for his own activism, but it is suspected that he was detained because he is simply married to an activist who is a US citizen who therefore cannot be deported. And this all coincides with some of the capitulation that we're seeing from universities and law firms and other institutions that claimed just a few short years ago in 2020 to prize the value of diversity, to support student growth, to recognize their history of student protests and student activism, why that is important for the development of students as leaders in the country, to support the right to dissent. But now these institutions are bowing down to the demands from the Trump administration to end support for DEI initiatives, to further oppress students and repress their speech, and to even consider handing over control of academic departments that are supposed to be independent so professors can conduct their research, handing over control of those potential academic departments to a receivership. And this says nothing of the hundreds, perhaps even thousands of people who are living in the shadows each day, who are being disappeared from communities all across this country, and being disappeared from our neighborhoods, our communities, and being thrown into ICE detention facilities where we're hearing reports of people not having proper food and water, people sleeping on floors, people who have not been accused of any crime. So this is a moment to speak out. This is a moment to be heard. This is not a moment to be afraid. And in closing, before we introduce our guests, I do want to read from a letter sent from Mahmoud Khalil from his ICE detention facility in Louisiana. And he states, "I have always believed that it is my duty not only to liberate myself from the oppressor, but to also liberate my oppressors from their hatred and their fear." And that's what we hope to take part in today. So with that long introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Holston to introduce our guests.
Well, Shirley, I want to comment just a little bit the power of what you just said. And I'm mindful actually of your sister, or my daughter, Dr. Jamila Holston, who was a recent graduate of Columbia University, who said to me a couple of times, I said, "Why do you care so deeply about this issue? There are real reasons for it." And she says, "Dad, I know these people. I know the pain that they're going through. Some of these people who were supposed to be graduating with us, but are not. Some have already been taken. Some have lost many family members." And I saw almost every student at her graduation, 800 students in her school, standing up for Palestinians and standing up for free speech. So this is the issue because we are building real relationships with people that are strong, that we feel the pain, and that pain that we feel today, looking for justice, looking for equality, looking for all of what you just talked about in such a powerful way, that we want to make sure that everyone has. And so I'm glad to have our guest here today who are going to share a little bit more, who have these lived experiences that are so powerful. As we are sitting here at these chairs together, begin to continue to build relationship with one another that causes us to move for justice. So I'm glad to have first to my left, Sam, if you would just introduce yourself and the organization you're with, and give us a little bit about your background.
I'm Sam Katab. I'm a co-founder of Prayers for Peace Alliance. It's an organization that brings in Jews with Palestinian Christians and Palestinian Muslims standing together and saying, enough is enough. We want peace. Through our work, we come from very diverse backgrounds. I've been in Philadelphia for many years. I love this city. It's the next best thing to Bethlehem, where I was born. So I am actually an immigrant. I do have my citizenship in case somebody's wondering and wants to make a phone call. But let me just say that coming here to this country was something very deep for us, very important for us. And it wasn't about this being a superpower. Mm-hmm. It was about the openness, the ability to speak your mind without any repressions. Mm-hmm. That's what was attractive. And you're taking that away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Sharon Granby Sabukwe. I am currently associate pastor at Salt and Light Church for social justice. I've been a professor most of my career. And more importantly, I think I grew up in political organization, organizing for Pan-Africanism. And in doing so, we understood that analyzing the political and economic systems that were at play globally was critical. And so as we came to understand colonialism and settler colonialism, we saw ourselves deeply aligned with Palestinians, with Native Americans, and the list goes on. And so for me, this struggle is an old one. It is one that is very much rooted in standing up for human dignity. It is rooted in caring for those whose struggles are actually connected.
Yes, yes.
Right? And they're connected with each other's, but also connected to those of us here. And the struggle on behalf of Palestinians has been one that the African American community, African American movements, and the Black church has engaged historically. And one of my other associations then is an organization I co-founded called Black Radical Christians, determined to lift up that legacy of radical Christian churches.
Amazing, amazing. Sam, do you want to, as we get into it, this, there is so much history in the Palestinian struggle for freedom. Can you give our viewers an encapsulation of that struggle and where we are at in this current moment?
The Palestinians have been under occupation and under bondage for 75 years. And the fact that we're under occupation is not necessarily the worst thing, because for 2,000 years we've been under occupation, whether it's the Romans, whether it's the Persians, whether it's the British, whether it's the Ottomans. This is different. This occupation is different. This occupation is whole approach, how to get rid of the indigenous people of that land away, through deportation, through bombings, through killings. And this is why you see Palestinians from all backgrounds standing and saying, we're not going to let you do that. Let Gaza live. Let us live. Give us our rights. You don't want to give us a nation, at least give us the equal rights. But do not dismiss us as something foreign when we're everything there. We have the Christian community in Christian Palestinians, for instance, basically have safeguarded the Holy Land for 2,000 years. The Muslims have done the same thing. The Jews who lived in Palestine have done the same thing. They've always taken care of the land, protected the land. What has happened is we have these foreigners that come from Europe and from the United States and claim it to be their land, and they claim that they love this land. But you don't love a land by carpet bombing it. You don't love a land by uprooting 2,000 and 1,000-year-old olive trees. Trees, what does trees do to you? What? They don't fight, they feed. So it's the Zionist approach that is so destructive that you have no choice but to resist.
So,
And I was just going to say, and that's brought us to this moment where the Palestinian people are experiencing a genocide of tens of thousands of people who have died, men, women, children, political prisoners, doctors, aid workers who have been killed in this moment. Journalists who have gone without food, who have gone without water, electricity, and who are immensely suffering. And so I think that it's important when we talk about the political repression that is being experienced in this country, that we don't forget that what we are fighting for.
Yes, yeah. And so there's several words that have been used that I want to make sure we have some time for the audience to get some clarity on. First word is, what is Zionism?
Zionism is a settler colonial racist policy designed to remove certain people from land in order to grant it to others. It grew up, Zionism did, in Europe initially, more than 100 years ago, as a policy to begin to address the pogroms against Jews in Europe, particularly in Spain. It was designed to find a homeland for the Jewish population that was under siege. A part of Zionism, though, it has become, as it's become a political ideology and a movement, has been, though, to deny the rights of Palestinians in favor of the Jewish population in Palestine, and to utilize the Christian story as a way, intentionally adapted as a means of justifying and reinforcing the right of Jews to the land in Palestine.
So Zionism isn't that old, is it?
Not as old as some ideologies.
About 100 years
Yeah.
in the making. But it was the Christians who
Yes.
created the concept of Zionism.
Yes.
And it's very sad because when you define Zionism and the practice of Zionism, it makes God a racist. Is God a racist? Does God favor one people over another people? Where's the new covenant? What happened? Do we go from the Old Testament and jump all the way to Revelation and skip Christ?
Who says he's no respecter of persons.
No respect of persons. Absolutely. And so it's these words, because when I grew up, the Zionism and Judaism were equated as being the same.
Wow.
I've actually heard these discussions.
Wow.
And to hear now, only 100 years old, Judaism is how many years? 5,000. Yeah. The relationship between Zionism and Judaism, where now many people who call themselves Jews are actively standing with Palestinians to fight against the injustice that they're seeing every day, and standing against the very philosophy and the thinking of Zionism.
Can I suggest one thing?
Sure.
Mitri Rahab, who's a Palestinian theologian, has two really good books about Zionism and its impact on the whole thinking and understanding of the Israelis in Palestine. One of them is called Facing Empire, but the other one is called Decolonizing Settler Colonialism. And he goes through and outlines a history of how the biblical story was increasingly developed and deployed in very instrumentalist ways to begin to transform people's thinking about why this was justified, why the same kind of settler colonialism that takes land away from indigenous people, claims they weren't there, claims that there's no reason why they should have a right to their own land. The same kind of thing, as I said, that happened to Native Americans, that happened in South Africa, but how the Israeli project increasingly decided and instrumentally decided to deploy the biblical story at various steps. For example, when they first began to bring Western European Jews over to Palestine, they chose intentionally to name the ship Guess what?
Exodus.
Exodus.
Yes.
Exodus. But he goes through and talks about how words were redefined, how characterizations of places and people were changed to try to align with the biblical story in a way that really is manufactured to begin to change thinking.
So I want to draw some connections here. Reverend Dr. Sobukwe, you've talked about how a lot of your history of activism began in the Pan-Africanist movement.
Yeah.
That also includes a study and protests related to the South African struggle against the apartheid system. And so I would love it if you could draw some of those connections
Absolutely.
To doing that kind of activism to the Palestinian struggle and what we're seeing today. And particularly if you were, I don't know if you were in college at the time. I'm not going to make assumptions.
I was.
But I certainly wasn't here at the time.
No, you weren't.
I was not here. But I want to draw some connections both to the Palestinian struggle, but also to student activism on campuses and how important that was to getting the U.S. To change its stance or to engage in the struggle in South Africa.
Well, let me say that my understanding is a lot of the thinking in the Pan-Africanist movement about Palestine grew out of, first, Malcolm X's wonderful piece, Zionist Logic, which really did begin to explain many of the similarities between Zionism, settler colonialism, and the experience of African Americans and the experience of Black people writ large. But, and to really show that this whole Zionist project is tied to world projects of colonialism and settler colonialism, that they exploit predominantly Black and brown people, and that it is intended to contribute to ongoing imperialism and the growth and spread of capitalism. We saw the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, kind of after studying Malcolm, take their own position against an anti-Zionist position. And so this became a part of the whole movement, right? This thinking and this analysis. And I will say that we saw the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee really branch out after time. Many go to the Black Panther Party. Others, like Stokely Carmichael, became Kwame Ture, go into Pan-Africanism. And one of the things that that movement recognized pretty early on is that students are the spark, right? That students, when we study major movements and revolutions around the world, what we see is that students don't necessarily carry out the change, but often students play a critical role because they move around, because they have access to information.
Yes.
And this is something that's really critical. Relationships on campus and back home, and all the places they travel.
Yes.
So they take what they learn, and universities have historically been places where students can learn and challenge ideas that they may have grown up with, things that they didn't know, and to begin to debate one another about them.
Yes.
That's what's so dangerous, of course, about this time, right? It is, and it's really the reason why there is this crackdown, because universities have been the place where our young people have been able to challenge ideas, to learn and grow their own, and then to put their bodies on the line for them. And this has sparked major change throughout history, whether it's the civil rights movement, whether we're talking about students in Latin America and various countries, whether we're talking about Steve Biko and students in South Africa. This is what's happened. In South Africa, you know that from around the time of the Russian Revolution, around 1917, South Africans, the ANC, began organizing. It was a long struggle, like 1917 to 1996. It was a long struggle. There was nothing easy or short term about this, and their struggle became a very much a mass struggle against apartheid, Again, settler colonialism, a minority of people come to the land late, deny the people the opportunity to generate wealth from their own resources, the land, control their land and their own labor, and then move the people off the most profitable land, take it for themselves, right? Deny the humanity of the indigenous people, right? Deny them the right to move about, to establish relationships, to come together, the right to assemble, the right to organize. Remember, just about all of the anti-apartheid movements and parties were banned, right?
Yes, which I want to give Sam an opportunity to respond to what you just heard.
And this is what we see in Israel. It's the same pattern.
Definitely.
Well, go ahead, Sam, and I have a story.
I can't argue with her because she's right on point, first of all.
Yes.
And I appreciate what you're saying and raising the historical parts of this. I want to point out that this is not a Jewish-Palestinian issue. What's happening today has really, really galvanized so many Jews to say, not in our name.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it's important that we raise that and point that out, because many of the student demonstrations that we've seen in the United States, the majority of them were Jewish. And the minority of them were Palestinians. And those who stood with them. So it's important that we tell people who are listening and who are willing to listen, don't define this as a Jew versus Arab or a Semite versus a non-Semite. This is not the way it is. We have a lot of beautiful relationships, strong relationships, strong advocates that stand with us and say, no way. We will not let this thing happen. We see the oppression. We see the destruction that's happening in our name. Now, I can't speak for all Jews. But as a Palestinian, I found that very comforting to find and those who are willing to stand, and many of the ones that we're talking about have rejected their family ties over this. So you have to understand, people were told a lie about Israel, that it is a haven, a place where Jews can go and live in safety. How can you live in safety when you're stealing somebody's land? How can you live in safety when you're constantly making the indigenous people miserable? You can't live in safety. There's more danger for a Jew to live in Tel Aviv than it is for him to live in Philadelphia. So it did not bring safety to them. Another thing that is really important is that they fled oppression from Europe. What Germany did to them was horrific. What Europe kept silent about was horrific. But the people who have suffered, how can they go and do the same thing? How can they carry out these atrocities? How can they use the same tactics that the Nazis used, but now against another people? And I think that's why you're seeing many of the young Jewish people saying, sorry, no, this is not going to happen in our name.
Yes, and so what we have is people who were oppressed, hurt, in their own hurt, turning around and doing the same kind of hurt to another group of people. Of course, we see that all the time, whether it's individuals or obviously states or nations. I have a Jewish friend of mine who said to me that till this day, he's about 70, he keeps his passport ready because he assumes that sometime this nation, he's talking about America, actually will turn on Jewish people and he'll need to flee. I tell that story only because that pain is still there, that fear is still there, and that fear is causing him and others to strike out against Palestinians and claim that there wasn't even any people in Israel.
I would say that he and others are being manipulated.
Yes.
I agree
Absolutely.
with you, Sam. It's not about Jewish people. It's about the Israeli state, and it's about the Zionist ideology.
Yep.
That's what it's about.
Yes.
And to the extent that many of these myths are perpetuated and these fears are dredged up again and again, it is manipulative even of Jews.
It is.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It's so manipulative. You know, Zionism is a very racist
Yes,
ideology.
yes.
But if they can make it a Jewish, then it becomes anti-Semitic. But it's not. It's not Jewish. It's Zionist. And Zionist says this land belongs to them, not because they bought it, not because they were living there. We know the Jews that lived there. They're still there. This is things that they took by force through a colonial type of
Mentality.
Look at what Netanyahu does today. We're going to take over Gaza. And Trump says, yes,
They
that's a
have to
good
go.
idea. You know, I'm going to take Greenland. And Russia says, that's even better. We'll take Ukraine. And what's going to happen tomorrow with Taiwan? You think China's going to say, ooh, we're going to be nice people? This whole thing of conquest, taking over lands that doesn't belong to you. We're modern people. We're a thinking people. We don't do this no more. We don't need it.
Yeah, and you have spent your life building solidarity amongst people, and that cannot, the importance of that cannot be understated, or cannot be overstated, I should say, because it is so critical to understand that relationships with people, that solidarity with people, is so important to understanding our history and moving forward. Understanding our relationship and how we relate to other human beings on earth requires us to move, requires us to act when we see injustices that are occurring. And so much about the system of capitalism in the US says, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to worry about those people and what's going on over there. Just look at what you want to buy on Instagram, or look at what you want to, as long as you and your family are okay,
Right.
then what else matters? But it's so important and critical to recognize that we need to reorder our values
Yes.
to be about solidarity
Yes.
amongst people, because we can't understand ourselves without understanding the movements that have predated us, and how other people are living and existing in this world.
So to fight against Zionism is a philosophy or theology of freeing people, not just the Palestinian people, but the Jewish people as well.
Absolutely.
And because it's a philosophy that separates and oppresses both groups, and actually oppresses all of us. And
I keep thinking
Go ahead.
more and more about how this developed into a deportation, for instance, now with the student movement and all that. What did the students do? They weren't saying go kill Israelis or go kill Jews. They said stop bombing. They said stop killing the children, stop bombing the hospitals.
Right.
200 journalists were killed. That's more like silencing.
Right. It is.
When you kill health workers, when you destroy hospitals, a church in Gaza survived 2,000 years, only to be bombed. And where? You can't tell me it's Hamas. It's a church.
And yet, it's Christians who started Zionism. It's Christian Zionists who are the biggest supporters
Yes.
right now, who are the biggest advocates, even bigger than AIPAC. They are the greatest advocates for Zionism and the state of Israel in its efforts now to ethnically cleanse Palestine.
Let's also talk about let's talk about that, but let's talk about the use of the term anti-Semitism and the connection or the nexus between using the term anti-Semitism, which has real meaning. It has real meaning. I mean, I always tell the story. I remember going to a Philadelphia police department and seeing a bulletin that was displayed prominently in that police district that was very anti-Semitic in nature. And it wasn't the students who were promoting that ideology. It was actually a bulletin that I found in the police department. And so I think when we're having these discussions about the importance of building solidarity, I think we also need to recognize how there are others who are seeing this moment and recognizing they can win their battles or long-fought battles to change the curriculum that students are learning, or to control universities so that more white students can be enrolled in those schools and those institutions, and using this moment where it is so important to challenge and combat anti-Semitism to really get across their ultimate aims, which is to return these very prominent universities to a place where they're essentially whites only.
That's well, please go.
And that what's taught doesn't stir up these strivings for justice. It doesn't question anything that the government wants to do. Collaboration. I wanted to follow up on something you said about collaboration. When you think about it, one of the biggest victories of the anti-apartheid movement is that it was a worldwide movement.
Yes, it was.
It was a worldwide, you remember, I remember.
Yes, it was.
My name is Sobukwe, not because I'm a descendant, a direct descendant, or my husband is, of Sobukwe, but Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe was a Pan-Africanist freedom fighter in South Africa. And my husband and I were involved here in Philadelphia in the anti-apartheid movement, like so many people around the world were. And it was an international movement of a diverse range of people.
Yes, it was.
And it was a collaborative movement. And it is what got companies to divest, got governments to sanction, because students, because workers, because churches and mosques all stood up and said, this is not right.
You were able to expose the atrocities and the hatred of that system.
Yes.
This is what they're silencing now.
And pressure
trying.
institutions and governments to do something
Right.
about it.
And
But
that's
it became unpopular.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be part of the anti-apartheid movement at one point. It wasn't popular in the beginning.
It certainly
But-
wasn't.
And this is what happened here, and I think this is the fear they had, is that, we're about to lose ground on this.
Yes.
That's why they called BDS terrorists, because BDS is the anti-apartheid model.
And
Boycott, divest, sanction. It is exactly the anti-apartheid model. And right from the beginning, it was called terrorist.
Yes. That's powerful that you made the connection to the anti-apartheid movement. My own memory is that in 1978, Nelson Mandela was a criminal,
A terrorist?
a terrorist. When people had a celebration of his birthday in 1978, it was a big concert and folk went, and they said, "Oh, you're going to celebrate this terrorist." And then by the time we got to 1985, and the anti-apartheid movement, and we were all in front of the embassy and protesting every day. Busloads of people coming in to protest every day at the embassy. All of a sudden, he wasn't a terrorist anymore.
Nope. And now
a hero.
he's a hero,
Nobel
much
Peace
beloved.
Prize.
Much
Man of
beloved.
Peace. But by the way,
Yeah.
I individually and the group that I work with, we reject violence. We don't see the value in violence. We believe that the power is in our voices and in our actions. And it's important that those who do not see eye to eye with this conflict is that they do not choose violence as a form. Because it's important that we discredit this concept that we just want to hate each other and we want to kill each other. Because that's the justification for what they've done to 14,000 babies
Yes.
were killed.
Yeah.
These are babies. They're looking for a pacifier. They're not looking for a gun. They can't even walk yet.
Right.
You know, 50,000
Yes.
civilians, and we don't know what's even under the rubble. This is really a tragedy of untold proportions for a population that is small as a
Yes.
Palestinian population. They've taken a few percentages out of our population and annihilated them.
Right. This after deporting so many in other decades.
The hundreds of thousands that
Right.
were deported. I remember one time standing, asking, our group likes to stand in front of churches and synagogues and mosques and basically hold a sign that says, please pray. Please pray for peace. Please pray for Gaza. We don't take sides and say, you know, this guy's a bad guy, this guy is. We just say, please pray and stop this bombing. One person walked by on the sidewalk past us, a young Jewish girl, and you could see that she was really troubled by the news of the children being killed and the bombings. And she looked at us and she says, I understand this pain, I feel it, but do you have to call it genocide? And then it was only like, I think the numbers were about 14 or 15,000. And I said to her, at what number would you like us to choose before we call it genocide? She says, but genocide is a very hard word. I said, so are the people who are being killed. So are the civilians being killed. Israel has the technology to deal with those who are real threats to them. So why would you be bombing hospitals or mosques or schools or aid workers?
Or churches.
Why would you starve a people?
And we also can't forget the repression going on in the West Bank as well, which is
The West Bank, basically, what's happened in Gaza has been a cover for the annexation of the West Bank. What's happening right now is each village, each city, Bethlehem to Jerusalem is literally a 5-minute drive. It's now 5 hours.
My goodness.
They have put walls around every single population. They have taken the farmlands from the people. They have, look at that, what happened a couple of weeks ago with the Oscar winner.
yes. Hamdan.
The arrogance to take somebody who's high profile, who just won an Oscar, and beat the crap out of him. And then the soldiers come and arrest him after that.
And
Could you imagine what happens to the person who's not known?
And the justifications that are used to engage in the genocide in Gaza are that it is because it is pro-Hamas,
Right.
which is not applicable to the West Bank. Like it's not even could be considered applicable.
Well, Hamas. Well, the words they throw together every time they try to justify the action is first is anti-Semite, and then it's Hamas.
Right.
We're doing this because I want Hamas, and you just were real clear about you're not about violence. You're about nonviolence, and there's so many people there who are fighting this or are fighting this in a nonviolent way.
The first Intifada
Yes.
was a nonviolent action.
Thank you.
The second Intifada was a nonviolent action. So where do you think these? By the way, this whole concept of Semite, anti-Semite,
Right.
I reject it. I am a Semite.
Yes, thank you. It's a linguistic term.
Yeah. Yes.
You cannot say we're anti-Semite. How can I be
Yes.
anti-me?
Right.
So it's not about anti-Semite,
Yes.
and it's not about anti-Jewish.
Right.
It is about anti-Zionist.
Thank
It
you.
is about an anti-Israeli government that is extremist, right-wing, and has absolutely no conscience when it comes to Palestinians.
It's just important for us to keep, because these words that keep being used and without real definition and really smearing what is going on. So it was so important that you just said that the Intifadas were nonviolent. I think people have forgotten that completely, you know, and are allowing this bombing to take place because these are just so violent people and they are intent on being violent, and best thing to do is to eliminate them. That kind of arrogance on their part, thankful for when you have forums where you have free speech and you have an opportunity to be able to share. We can get through these words to get to really what the truth is.
But I must say, in South Africa, there were not only nonviolent, but violent resistance. After years of being deprived of your land, of your productivity, of your humanity, when there are no other means of getting change, I'm not willing, as much as I agree that nonviolence is best, I'm not willing to let violent resistance to violent oppression become the problem. Do you understand my point?
Yes.
We cannot let it distract from the fact of the violence, the incredible violence that a settler colonial state, Israel, has rained down on Palestinians for almost 100 years. That has to matter. And people have to have a right to resist.
The
It can't-
Palestinians definitely have the right to resist.
Yeah.
And armed struggle is a right for them. Is it effective, is the question.
Yeah.
In my eyes, it has not been effective. It has been used as a tool to oppress us. When you look at Gaza for the last 75 years, and definitely for the last 20 years, has literally been a prison, a large prison cell. How in God's name did those weapons get in there when you're controlling the borders?
Yeah. They claim they come through the tunnels. They claim.
Sorry,
But my
you
point
allowed
is,
those things in there.
But my point is this. We can't let Israel use that as an excuse for why they bomb, for why they attack. Because, as Professor Nora Arakat said Monday night, they were doing this well before Hamas.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Well before.
Well before Hamas. So the point isn't the resistance and the people's right to resistance. The point is the settler colonial violence and plan to eliminate Palestinian people.
I think your point is very, very important. It reminded me of actually of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr.'s discussion about nonviolence. That King made it a principle when it really should have just been a tactic. In fact, actually Kwame Ture used to say that all the time. He took a principle and made it a tactic and made it a principle. And you're just saying nonviolence is the tactic that you think will work compared to what you've seen other tactics.
We don't have tanks. We don't have fighter jets.
Yeah.
We don't have no submarines. We have a rowboat, maybe. And we have a couple of stones with good slingshots. That's it. Some of the weapons that they have been able to acquire in Gaza were the result of the bombs that came down and did not explode. So they've been able to use them against the enemy. But we're not in a position to fight an aircraft carrier that comes to the shores to protect Israel. We're not. So what tactic can we use that can liberate us?
So I want to.
Sorry, but some of these actions are more feel-good actions. But how do you change the world to the point where the world can put the pressure on Israel and say to them, we're not going to sell you weapons, we're not going to finance you anymore. In fact, you know what? You're going to be a pariah state.
And the biggest supporter is the country we sit in.
Yes. And so that brings us back to the discussions of repression in the U.S. and how the student movements, which have been nonviolent, have been met with violent resistance from police officers, from universities that are not protecting its students, to the point where Columbia University, the University of Pennsylvania, Columbia University had $400 million threatened to be withheld from their funding. They have an endowment that is over $15 billion. The University of Pennsylvania threatened with funding removal, had an upheaval where their president was removed. They also have a very large endowment. And so the institutions that could be speaking up or facilitating others to speak up, facilitating that strong history of student resistance to oppression, are now saying, we will not do that. We will not support free speech, and are allowing even their academic departments.
Yes.
You know, what you'll notice is what the Trump administration said. They said, well, in response to Columbia's lack of action related to anti-Semitism, we are going to request that Columbia's Africana department, Middle Eastern department, and there's another department,
Asian Studies
department, be placed under a receivership.
Yes.
Censorship.
Censorship. Censorship.
Yes, that's the better word.
That's critical. And so, how does anti-Semitism relate to the African Studies Department, which includes Black studies in this very country?
Yeah.
And so, what are we talking about here? It's broader.
It's hegemonic control.
It
is
and
dominating higher education and changing it from what we know it to be.
and
because they see the link between the Africana studies and all of these departments in this movement in Palestine. They know we see the link and they see the link. And now it's time to eliminate all who are connected.
But to be fair, what I think is they also want to exploit any potential links to that,
Yes, they
to
do.
get at the Black Studies Department, to
Yes, they
not
do.
allow
Yes,
people
they
to
do.
teach their history,
Right.
to not
Yes.
allow people to teach the history of oppression in this very country, right? Which, of course, we are in solidarity with one another, but these are distinct movements as well. And so I just think that is an important thing to realize when we're in this moment where people who are ensconced in privilege, professors, academics, university administrators are choosing to say, well, I need to protect my career and I need to protect myself at the expense of justice, at the expense of peace, at the expense of people who are dying every single day.
Yeah.
And we have to stand up and say that's not okay.
Yeah, but I think what it shows is that they are one project. They may be different movements, but it's one project. It's one project that has global and local implications, right?
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is that they see clearly, and we need to see clearly, that the kind of oppression and control, repression and control, that is at the heart of all of this is just manifests in all of these different ways. And as long as we see them as separate struggles, then we're missing the point.
And the solidarity between Black people in the U.S. and Palestinians is not one way, right?
Nope,
Because
that's right.
Palestinians have been supporting the movement for Black freedom in this country
That's
as
right.
well, even in particular with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
can't forget
That's right.
that as well. Sam?
Yeah, no. To me, as a parent, also, I sent my kids to school, to colleges, to broaden their horizon, to understand different ideas, to understand and make their own decisions. I didn't send robots.
Right.
You know, if I wanted them to study just technical stuff, they could have done it on the computer. But we wanted them to have that cultural exchange, to see what people from Africa, people from Europe, people from Latin America, people from the Middle East, people with different religions, different faiths, how they can find common ground and work together and understand, you make the world a much nicer place.
Well, that raises something else about higher education today. In many ways, it is under attack in more ways than this. And the whole move towards a more technological, strictly technological education, one that devalues arts and sciences, one that minimizes the importance of anything that doesn't contribute directly to a job, is in itself beginning to limit the ability of young people to think critically.
So we got robots in the future, human robots, that's it.
Well, we have just a few more minutes left in the program, but I want to comment quickly on public education and then give you some time to kind of think about some final remarks and where are we going to go from here? Where do we take this information from here? As far as higher education and public education, you know, there are obviously people who don't believe in democracy and see education as a tool that helps build democracy, and therefore want to destroy public education and higher education because they want to destroy democracy.
Yes.
And they would love to see a global elite be able to control all of the resources of the world and control all of the power in the world. I was told oligarchs, what the definition of oligarch is, they like to be able to control everything and charge you for it. And so we have some clear people who desire to be oligarchs. They have this level of wealth. And whether it's the project in Israel, the project dealing with the Palestinians, the project in South Africa, the project here in America, all of that is about control and power of just a few, and they don't mind using race, and racism, and Zionism, and anything else to be able to get that power. Just in your final remarks, where do we go from here? How do we deal with all of what we talked about and begin to build a movement for real change? I'm going to start with you, Professor.
Okay. Well, my faith teaches me that we will have storms and we will have challenges. And that while God will see us through, God does not always remove us from those storms. And so I would say that this is an opportunity for us, as much as it is painful, as much as we see lots of devastation and loss of life. It is an opportunity for us to raise the flag of collaboration and of unity. It is an opportunity for us to politically educate one another, to challenge our faith traditions, to overcome the miseducation we've endured and the colonization, I'll even say, of our faiths. Because I think, and we know, that many of the things we're experiencing on university campuses, especially in terms of repressing student movements, began before Trump. Deportations, the chief deporter, we don't like to admit it, was Barack Obama. The funding cuts, they began in Obama's administration. So
Yes.
it's a time for us to reconsider what we thought we knew, and to politically educate ourselves and to organize, to collaborate.
Yes.
Yes. Sam.
For me, it's we have to also no longer look at saying Democratic Party, Republican Party. We have to look at our values. Where do our values fall? If the Democrats are not espousing our values, we have to reject it. We have to reject the Republicans if they don't espouse our values. What do our values say? Do they say conquering, or do they say peace? Do they say share, find common ground, or do they say annihilation?
Amen.
And wherever this falls, we have to stand firm on. What's happened with the student movement, especially with people like Mahmoud Khalil, what did he say? He said, stop killing. And for that, he's going to get deported. He's now sitting in prison. A liver transplant specialist came to the States and got turned around because she had a picture. with some issues behind it. Come on, where's our free speech? Where's our constitutional rights? This is what we need to start protecting.
We have
Yes.
to keep speaking up.
Yes.
The institutions have to say no more. The institutions have to say no more.